Hey y'all. So this week I have decided to take on the challenge of creating 2 separate videos which will each be mini reviews. For 7 weeks now I have been reviewing episodes of Severance, and that's not about to stop, but since I have quite a bit less than usual to say about this week's episode, I decided to supply 2 mini reviews, one of Severance and one of Invincible, which I've been consistently watching without reviewing for a while now. If you're interested in both shows, check out my Severance video just about an hour after this one's release. And if you want to hear my thoughts on the full season of Invincible, don't worry, because that's coming with a full season review next week. However, just to catch up, I will say that I have enjoyed how high stakes this season has felt in comparison to the previous, which was essentially a bunch of filler episodes and generally disappointing. I still found myself becoming uninterested in some of the stranger side plots, and issues such as an overflow of side characters persist, but the back half of the season is really stepping things up. Episode 7 has made a major splash in the community, being the highest rated of the entire show, and it definitely is an eventful one. I can't really say I like it that much, but it is a pretty impressive adaptation. Let's talk about it.
Never, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back, because you won't be back.
Up to this point, the main plot of this season has been Cecil and Mark's fallout with the side of Aaron Paul as the new villain Powerplex. It's a continuation of the Season 2 arc, which challenged Mark's perception of himself as a hero, or a repetition of his father. However, this episode decides that none of that matters, and we're instead going to drop in Angstrom Levy from last season to fuck shit up. The first time I saw Angstrom in one of the post-credit scenes, I was incredibly frustrated. It was yet another example of the show reviving a character which had no reason to survive, and it invalidated the most major moment of the Season 2 finale. However, I'm happy to say that I've come around to it. I think they gave Mark enough time to still be affected by Angstrom's quote-unquote death before he discovers he survived, and they also managed to upgrade him enough to make his return feel worth it. Angstrom comes back with a vengeance, more unapologetically ruthless than ever, having completely lost sight of his original intentions. He also poses a more serious threat due to his new weapon of seemingly unlimited bombs, and of course, an army of evil Invincibles. I do like Angstrom's perseverance because while some characters only survive based on pure luck, it seems like Angstrom is just a cockroach that actively frustrates Mark in how resourceful and lucky he is. It makes it so that the two's rivalry has deep anger coming from both sides, instead of Angstrom just seeming like an evil fanboy that Mark doesn't even know. Plus, Sterling K. Brown is great as always. I do think Angstrom surviving again is reaching the level of self-parody, since him dying here permanently to make room for the other entering villains, yet leaving a serious imprint on Mark, would make sense, but maybe next time he comes back he'll be even better. Here's hoping. When it comes to the evil Invincible army, I think that the writers did a decent job of fleshing out each one separately. While quite a few of them fall into the typical raging lunatic archetype, Mohawk Mark stands out as the most berserk for sure, and a few of them are more reserved. Omni-Man is laid back, Dark Invincible loves his mom, Unmasked Invincible is gay, etc. For one-episode characters, they're not bad. I personally would have liked to see a bit more of them fighting each other, given that them working together seems very unlikely, and I would guess that that's what happened by the time that Angstrom deserts them, but we're never going to see that. Mark himself gets a good amount of subtle development throughout this episode, though it is a bit disappointing that he's pretty heavily overshadowed by just how much is going on. It kind of tempers the amount of characterization he is able to get, but there's still key moments. First of all, Mark and Cecil seem to be on better terms after this episode. Though Mark still doesn't like Cecil's techniques, he understands that there are bigger threats and that working together is a necessity. This episode also justifies Cecil's safeguards, given that his robots were some of the fiercest defenders against Mark's variants. However, the strongest aspect of this episode for Mark, I would say, is his increased rage. Mark is absolutely pissed throughout this episode, feeling awful for letting Eve get injured, even worse when he finds out that Angstrom is alive. Hell, he might have actually gone through with killing Angstrom if he didn't hesitate, and with the arrival of Conquest, it's going to be hard for Mark to hold back. I would say this is probably the most I've ever been convinced that Mark is going to turn. Previously, it had always been far-fetched and just an anxiety that he was keeping, but with the world turning on him due to Powerplex, and Angstrom forcing him to go places he doesn't want to, I definitely don't think it'll be long before Mark gets to killing. Okay, but I saved one thing for last. The death of Rexplode. I have to say it was pretty obvious that this was coming. Rex quite literally spells it out by saying he is at the best moment of his life, and of course, this results in his suicide bomb scene, killing a Mark variant. This scene is dramatic, it is well acted. Rex gets to flex his powers by not just lighting himself up, but also heating up the floor in an incredibly cool way that I don't think we've ever seen before. The climax, with Jason Mantzoukas' final word being dickhead, is perfect. But the scene is not. This is an unfortunate result of having about 30 fake-out deaths. If I didn't know this was how Rex went out in the comics, I wouldn't really believe this. The series has done this so many times. Oh my god, that character's head exploded. No, they're fine. Oh no, that character got eaten alive, and everyone's sad. No, they're fine. I think the real problem with this scene is the lack of build-up. Outside of one scene with Ray early on, this is Rex's only moment in the episode. We don't get to see his reaction to the arrival of the evil Marks, or any sort of grouping of the teen team before we just cut into the middle of their fight. In general, I think this is a great platform that simply didn't have the structural beams underneath. Nonetheless, I will miss Rex, and as a character throughout the series, he only got better and better. I salute you, big guy. Really, that's about all I have to say about this episode, outside of a few small comments. I personally did really love the structure of this episode, as I thought it added a lot of drama. Having the days separate by title cards was very tense, with a little evil laugh from Angstrom supplied each time around. Plus, it doesn't waste any time getting to the action. The Invincible War is one swift battle of chaos, and the episode really makes it feel like it. By the end, the world is in utter disarray. It looks apocalyptic. The show does this a lot, but I think they succeeded at making this look like the worst it has ever been. This episode carries a lot of weight, and though a few more scenes of development could have helped it to be that perfect top-tier episode that it seems to be being praised as, I'm not giving this anything lower than a 9 out of 10. It is undoubtedly the strongest episode since Season 1. Alright, that's about it. See you in an hour with my Severance mini-review, and I'll see you in a week with my complete review of Invincible Season 3 as a whole. Thanks for watching. Bye now.